This YouTube is giving trouble. So, the natural functions only indicate the natural functions are not social duties, not a Shastra based duties. You have not taken up a special lifestyle. You live a natural lifestyle as you are a small baby. That is called sannyasa. So, if you have ambition, if you want a social status, see, sannyasi is a non-civil person. He is not a civil. A civil life, giving up the civil life is called sannyasa in short, in our traditional way, in our traditional interpretation, traditional understanding. There is a civil life and a non-civil life. Of course, this non-civil, I don't know whether you understand, a civil life and a military life. In our modern language, one is a civic life, another is a military life. So, but here we are talking a civil life, means you live like a citizen, as a member of a society. Once you are a member of society, you follow the government laws and social customs. You are bound by a law and you are taxed. You can own the property. You take advantage of all government laws. Government laws give you fundamental rights. Okay? All fundamental rights are given to you. So you have got a right to property, right to travel. If somebody hurts you, you can go and complain to the police so that you will be protected and the other person will take care of you. The police will take care of you and you will punish the person who hurt you, who harmed you. So this is an advantage of social life. You can go to court, demand the rights, you can own the property and all this. But sannyasi gives up the civil life. Civil life, I think you can imagine only a beggar. In India, only a beggar doesn't have a civil life. It doesn't own property. If somebody hurts him, he doesn't go and complain to police station. If somebody exploits him, he just tolerates and lives. That means he feels that he is a part of Ishvara's srishti, Ishvara's creation. He feels that he is a part of Ishvara's creation and directly Ishvara is looking after him. Whatever happens, it doesn't bother. Okay, so so to distinguish sannyasa, the lifestyle sannyasa is like a beggar's, can be explained through a life of a beggar or life of a baby up to 4 or 5 years old, because there are no personal ambitions to the baby. It just eats and lives. That's all. Eats, drinks, and just lives a natural life. It doesn't have any special love, special ambition for anything. Similarly, sannyasi doesn't claim, neither he claims civil rights, nor he commits any civil crime. Civil crime by hurting people, snatching property, all those things a sannyasi never indulges. Okay, he doesn't own property, doesn't acquire, and is not interested in worldly pleasures. Status also, he doesn't care for status. So wealth, wealth, social status, government laws, it doesn't demand protection of government laws because it transcends that. So if you feel, when you feel that you are a member of a society, then you have certain duties to do, and you also expect the government and society to take care of you. If something happens to you, if somebody hurts you, somebody steals your property, you can go and complain and they will look after you. The police looks after you. This means you have got rights. Civil life, a civic life has got a rights. You can demand. So this is a natural life without demanding a social civil rights. So a beggar or a baby 4 or 5 years old baby lives like that. That's all. It doesn't understand the social laws, government laws, politics, etc. It doesn't understand. Therefore, it lives a natural life. In natural means neither you do anything to society, bound by duty. You may do it out of compassion is different. Out of what you say that kindness, out of kindness voluntarily you may do it, but you don't feel bound duty. Oh, I am supposed to do. There is no bound duty. He may do whatever he loves to do it spontaneously, happily. He just doesn't make it a forced thing or bounden duty. A bounden duty you are supposed to do, and you demand the society and government to look after you. So both the ways it is. I do the work to get my material benefit. I expect the government and society to look after me, not to hurt me, as long as I am legal. So this is legally acquiring things and enjoying. This is a normal person's action. Here, sannyasa lifestyle means he doesn't expect. It doesn't expect, because if somebody hurts you, he doesn't go to the court and you see he hurt me and he exploited me. It doesn't complain. He doesn't complain, because neither he claims civil rights nor he has a duty, civil duty towards the society. See, simple logic here. That's why it is a dharma. We call Hinduism is a dharma. If you receive help from somebody, then you are bound to help others. That's a simple logic. If you receive help from others, you are supposed to contribute to it. But a sannyasi neither claims civil rights. This is important. This is my right and he must give me, he must look after me. You can't demand, you can't claim. Okay? You can't pressurize. If he doesn't do, you can punish him. That you can't do. He just lives there. That is sannyasa. So this sannyasa means giving up all worldly duties which are done consciously and willfully. The other one is the natural instinctive actions of a living being. Living organism has got natural functions. They are part of nature. Nobody has created. So, these natural functions cannot be given up because you have to live. As long as you are in a waking state, you have to do some or other. Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtatya karmakrat. Nobody can remain ever without doing something or other. It's impossible to give up all karma, as long as you are an individual. So the very transcend the individual, that's important. Transcend the individual itself is a great thing. So therefore, the natural functions also he gives up by discovering, by understanding himself to be witnessing consciousness. He discovers himself to be a witnessing consciousness. Then he ceases to be an individual. He ceases his life a relational life. A relation in terms of space, relation in terms of time, and many others. So these social life, neither he demands the benefits, advantages of social life, nor he goes about doing something. He just transcends both and lives a normal life, lives a natural life. So a sannyasi, a sadhaka sannyasi, gives up the extra duties. But there are certain natural instinctive karmas of the individuality. Where will they go? They won't go away. They go away only by enlightenment. Only by enlightenment, even the sense of individuality, all this goes away. So therefore, Bhagavan Sri Krishna as well as Acharya Shankara use the word Sarva Karmani Sanyasya, all the karmas. All the karmas, how can you give up? All the karma, giving up all the karmas means sannyasa only. This sannyasa is not only renouncing the social and economic political rights, not only giving up the social rights, but even the individuality he gives up. How? By intuiting the truth. By intuiting the truth, he gives up his individuality. Therefore, the shloka says, Sarva karmani sannyas. How? By an understanding. Manasa. Manasa is by understanding that you are actionless. You are free from action, free from movement. There is no movement, there is no action on your part. All the actions are done, yourself being directly involved in it. So similarly, Sarva Karma Sannyasa means only understanding the truth. In the very nature of the Atma, there are no these petty activities. Even the individual activity, selfish activity, all those activities go away. Therefore, sannyasa is considered superior. Because he transcends his individuality and lives in his natural state of the Atman. Okay, therefore, Bhagavan Krishna says, Sarva Karmani Sannyasa. Giving up all the karmas. All means even the Kartrutvam. All karmas means Kartrutvam. The very doership. Sarva Karmani. How does he give up? By understanding. Manasa Sanyasya. You can only, by your understanding, by your intuiting, you can transcend. The karma cannot be stopped. You transcend it, it ceases to be there for you. Therefore, Sarva Karmani, Manasa, by understanding the Atman, Sanyasya, having given up, Sukhe Navadvare Pure Dehi, Sukhi Vashi, Sukham Vashi. How does he sit there? Very happily relaxed. Generally, people need to do lot of work. Their responsibilities are there. Therefore, after a person who gives up all karmas, how does he live? He lives as a sukhi. Because karma involves pressure, tension. Karma involves pressure, tension. Karma involves pressure on the doership. But here he transcends all karmas. Okay. Therefore, Sukham Vashi. Sukham means not a pleasure. One is, see, sukhas are different, you see. One is physical level pleasure, sense organ level. Second, prana level. See, these are the various happinesses, kinds of happiness. One happiness is pleasure, which is sensuous pleasure. Second is prana level happy, when you are not suffering from fever and some such thing. When you appease your hunger, drench your thirsty. Okay? Quench your thirsty. Appease your hunger. When you fulfill your hunger, then you feel relaxed. That is a happiness of prana. Okay. Then another happiness is at the level of emotions. Mind or emotion. Emotionally. Fourth is intellectual. Okay, because certain ideas, understanding also give us satisfaction, give us ego. Therefore, intellectual. You understand an idea, you feel happy. If you misunderstand something, you feel uneasy. Like this, sarva karmani means, no, sukham, sarva karmani we have told, sukham. He is happy, he stays happy. Happy means in what sense happy? You mean the happiness at the level of sense organs? No, because he de-identifies with the body and sense organs. Then at the level of prana, no, that also he transcends. Then bhava, at the level of mind, he says, emotional, that is. Positive emotion gives you happiness, negative emotion hurts you. So therefore, emotional level also, you are one. I mean, the happiness, there is emotional level happiness, but Atma's happiness is different. Then intellectual means a certain idea, certain concept also gives you some happiness. Here we are talking of the happiness of none of this type. So far, when we say sukham, sukham is not at the level of sense organs, pleasure, nor the joy in the mind, emotional, nor the pranic happiness, nor the intellectual. Okay, all of them he transcends, is directly Brahman alone. So it is not a partially giving up the karma. Complete karma means even the individuality is given up. You don't have an individual also. Therefore, manasa sanyastya sukham aste. He lives very happily, comfortably. Now, what is the kind of happiness he talked about here? This is Atmananda. He gives up. Sukham. These lower kinds of sukham he gives up. But the sukham pertaining to Atma really belong to Atma alone. It can never be found outside the Atma. We call it Atma Sukham. Atma Sukham is not the happiness at the level of sense organs, not of prana, not of mind, not of intellect, not of status. It is not even conscious of status. He just does his duty. If somebody kills him, just all silently he dies. So it is the shamelessness of the society which cannot protect good people. It allows those wicked people to thrive. Okay, we leave this thing. First, he is a Sukhi, is a very happy person. This happiness is a nature of the Atma. Okay, this Sukham is a nature of the Atma, is not acquired due to anything. This Sukham is not an acquired one, is naturally existing, ever existing. Okay. So, seeing the word Sukham, don't translate it is in a worldly way. Therefore, it is Atma Sukham. Next is Vashi. Vashi means one who keeps the things under his control, or he is a good authority. He is called Vashi. Vashi means whose mind and sense organs are under his control. But this doesn't mean he is continuously trying to control. It is spontaneously mind remains with you. You don't have to think. Naturally, the mind has to come to its control. Therefore, Sukham and Vashi only means he is happy without any tension, without any pressure, without any fear, without any tension, without any dukkha. Therefore, Vashi, he is naturally under himself. His body, mind and sense and everything is under his control. ఓకే, సుఖం వశి. ఇక నెక్స్ట్, నవద్వారే పురే దేహి నైవ కుర్వన్న కారయన్. నవద్వారే పురే దేహి. He lives in this house which consists of 9 gates. If you go by the old forts, understand them, how they are. Navadvare pure dehi. So this body is like a puram, as a what you say, that a king's fort. In those days, kings used to build forts, and it is a huge building. Inside, number of people, families can live. Some army also can live. So it is for the protection from the attack of enemies. Therefore, Navadvare Pure Dehi, you live Navadvara Pura, in this city. Puram is city. This body is comparable to city, but this city consists of 9 gates. Okay, Navadvare Pure Dehi. Navadvara, 9 gates. All these various like mouth and eyes and ears, and then eyes, all these are Navadvaras, 9 gates to enter into this city of body. In order to enter into this city of body, you have to use one of these gates, otherwise you can't enter. So Navadvare Pure Dehi. Dehi is Atma. Atma, by giving up all karma, sarva karma sannyasa, he becomes enlightened. Now he says, how does he, if a jnani once is enlightened, how does he live? He says, Navadvare Pure Dehi. He lives in this gate of 9, in this palace of 9 gates. Okay. Naiva kurvan nakarayan. Neither he does, neither he carries out action, neither he performs any function, nor takes care of others. That means he impels, he guides others to commit violence. But here, neither he commits violence nor he allows others. Okay. Naiva kurvan nakarayan. Neither he does nor he prompts other to do anything. That means he sees everybody as a jnani. Not only he is akarta, free from individuality, all other people are free from individuality, but they may not be aware. That's the only difference. Okay, therefore, Navadvare Pure Dehi. Here it is very interesting point which Shankaracharya says. Why should the Bhagavad Gita say that he lives in the city of 9 gates? That is body. Why does he have to give this example here? Here, why do you say he sits on the body? He sits on the body or in the body? I think you don't know how to translate it. He sits on the body. How? Here, the interesting point is, if you are a body yourself, if you are yourself the body, you can't be sitting in the body. Sitting on the body, like sitting on a branch of a tree. You can't sit there because body, Jnani is sitting here. Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita says, Jnani sits on the body because all others, Shankaracharya says here itself in a small discussion, if he takes himself to be body, he will be sitting on chair. See, if he takes himself to be a body, then I am the body. I become equal to body. When I am the body, what happens? Generally, a person takes himself to be a body, he sits on the chair. But here, Jnani, an enlightened man, gives up all the karmas. All the karmas means including the body, including his individuality. When he gives up, then what happens? Sarva karmani sanyasya, all karmas are given up. Okay. But one point is why he sits on the body, upon the body. Here, the idea is not to say that Jnani sits within the body. It only means he transcends the body. This is a way of telling, a peculiar way of telling. Because Shankaracharya himself says in his commentary on this, if you are the body, you will be sitting on chair. Because when body is sitting, I am sitting, body is standing, I am standing, it is lying down, I am lying. So if the body sits on, if a Atma sits upon the body, it only means he is not the body, that's all. Shankaracharya explains, he is not the body. That's what he wants to convey. Therefore, he sits upon the body means he transcends the body. That's what the idea is. Therefore, Naiva kurvan nakarayan. Neither he does anything, nor he indirectly encourages others to do this thing. That means there is no way of any action on his part. He is totally sakshi, not affected by anything. That's what his nature is. I think this is enough because we don't go into details. There are many slight differences. The technical details will give up. The basic central idea we got it. Okay. Next point, I think we'll stop with this today. Next two shlokas, 14 and 15, go together. Regarding 13, I just say one or two words and then close it, one or two sentences and close it. Navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvan nakarayan. A common man, an ignorant person, taking himself to be body, he thinks and he speaks to others, I am sitting on a chair. But Jnani doesn't sit upon the chair because to be able to sit upon the chair, you have to become body. So he gives up his identification with the body. Therefore, he is called that he is sitting upon the body. He is not sitting on the chair. If he were the body, he will be sitting on the chair. If he transcended it, that means he is sitting upon the body, he is not the body. That's a simple difference. If he were body, he will be sitting on chair. Since he is not the body, he remains Sakshi. This is what the meaning, the central idea of the shloka. That Naiva Kurvan Nakarayan, in a way I explained, but a little point is there. That we'll tell in the next class. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Okay, today I need rest.